Good afternoon to you all. My name is Muhammad Sani Bello, Chief Technology Officer at Hackset Tech. Today we'll be going over Hack AI across academic subjects, Part 1. As usual, the workshop flow design follows a hook. Then we'll learn, we'll practice what we learned, we'll apply the knowledge, and then we'll unlock the next level. Our mission is to empower individuals and organizations here at Hackset, and currently we have over 1,273 plus members. We have done and created over 20 plus projects, and we've been to over 157 plus cities. Our social media tags and handles are available here. You can tag us when you post content you generated with AI, and we usually monitor to check the ones with more engagement, and with more engagements, you get a higher chance of getting a freebie. So the table of contents of what we'll be covering over today will be the subject-specific mindset first. We'll then cover STEM, your problem-solving partner, mathematics, science, physics, chemistry, and biology, how to use AI to solve those, computer science and programming. We'll then go over humanities. That's your research and analysis assistant. We'll then do a history, how to use AI for history, to learn history, and even do assignments and all. We'll go over literature and language arts, social sciences, that's psychology, sociology, and economics. And then we'll go over the creative fields, how your inspirations and basically your inspirations and technical guide with AI, of course. We'll go about visual arts and design, music, writing, and storytelling, your AI subject toolkit for each subject. We'll then create some little items. Now, this third to the last is common subject specific mistakes people make, and then I take away and then we'll discuss what's next. Now, here's pop quiz. What do history essay, a physics problem, a creative writing assignment, and learning Spanish all have in common? Now, the answer is they are all dramatically easier with AI as a study partner. If you know how to adapt to each subject, that's if you know how to adapt to each subject. Now, here's the thing most people miss. AI isn't a one-size-fits-all tool. The way you use it for mathematical problem solving is completely different from how you use it for literary analysis. Now, this model is your subject-specific toolkit. By the end, you'll know exactly which AI technique works best for your field of study, with ready-to-use prompts for everything from easy essay outlines to code debugging. Now, the specific subject mindset we'll be going over. Different subjects need different AI approaches. Now, for STEM courses, which are science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, AI is your calculator on steroids and concept explainer, basically. Now, for humanities, those are history, literature, and languages. AI should be your research assistant and writing coach. For creative fields, which are art, music, and design, AI is your inspiration engine and technical helper. Now, once you understand these roles, you can plug AI into any subject instantly. Now, think of AI like water. It basically takes the shape of whatever container you pour it into. Now, the container here is your subject, of course, and your job is to shape AI's capability to fit into that container. Now, here's a mental model you should understand. AI has 3 core academic superpowers. The first is pattern recognition. It can analyze data, spot trends, and find connections. Knowledge synthesis. It can explain concepts, connecting ideas across multiple domains. And the third is generation. It can create examples, draft content, and even suggest possibilities. Now, different subjects emphasize different superpowers, of course. STEM fields lean heavily on 1 and 2, which are pattern recognition and knowledge synthesis. Now, use examples like explain this physics concept with real-world examples, or maybe something like check my mathematical reasoning step by step. Now, in humanities courses, now use all 3 of the patterns of the core academic superpowers earlier. You use examples like analyze this poem's theme, which is the first example. Connect this historical event to modern politics, or draft an essay outline. Now, these are all ways you can use AI to solve humanities questions or maybe understand humanities courses. And then there's the creative fields. You should prioritize 3 and 2, which are knowledge synthesis, generation and knowledge synthesis. Say something, or should I say, type something like generate 10 logo variations, or maybe something like explain theory in graphic design. Explain color theory in graphic design. Now, the mistake beginners make is treating AI identically across all subjects. That's like using a hammer for every task. Sometimes you need a screwdriver, not a hammer. Now, let's get you the right tools for each job. Now, STEM, your problem-solving partner. In mathematics, AI excels at step-by-step problem solving, concept explanation and verification, but there is a right way to use it. The wrong way is solve this for me and then paste the problem. That's a question, or maybe a word problem you were given. Of course, you'll get the answer, but you'll learn nothing. The right way, however, is I'm solving, then in quotation or bracket, paste your entire problem. Explanatory, or should I say, be explanatory. Now, then say something like, here's my approach. Also, explain your approach. That's your personal approach, how you'll approach such a problem. You don't have to worry about it being wrong or right. Just explain your problem. The AI will actually understand from the kind of picture you have in your mind. The AI will actually use that shape to explain it better. Then say something like, is my logic sound? If not, why did I go wrong? Now, using this kind of questioning design or pattern, the AI becomes your tutor. It doesn't just gives you an answer and leaves you there. It catches errors in your explanation and tells you why they are wrong, and then reinforces the learning along the way. Now, power problems for mathematics students, of course. If you're given a question, use something like explain, then in brackets, write the concept there. It could be algebra, it could be geometry, it could be quadratic equations, whatever. Now, using a real-world analogy that a beginner could understand. Now, the AI will actually use this kind of prompt to make you a personalized way of understanding that particular concept. You can also do something like, I got answer X, but the solution key says Y. Here are my steps. Then paste your work. You can even take a picture maybe of the solution you tried manually. Where is my error? Maybe you would have tried answering the question manually yourself, but then didn't actually get the answer. You can take the picture, send it with this prompt, and it will actually detect where you made a mistake and correct you along the way. It will actually even press where you did right. You can also do something like create 5 practice problems on topic. That's this topic, in a sense. You can maybe put a topic title. It could be, of course, geometry. It could be probability. Any topic you were given. Tell it to create 5 practice problems on. Explain the topic there, or should I say, put the topic there with increasing difficulty. Show solutions. Now, using this statement, increasing difficulty, makes the AI doesn't just generates the 5 practice problems. It actually makes the problems much more kind of progressively harder along the way. So the first question will not be as hard as the 5th question. So the first question will be much more easier. The second will progress a little bit harder. The third harder again, and then to the last 5, the 5th question, which will be a lot more harder. But the point is, it reinforces what you learn from the first question and applies into the second to the last, making you understand how you approach it and solve the problem. You can also say something like, explain when to use formula A. That's you paste in the formula there versus formula B. You paste in the formula there with examples for each. For sciences, which are physics, chemistry, and biology, science is about understanding systems and relationships. Now, AI shines at explanation and visualization, of course. Here are an example of power problems for sciences. You can say something like explain, then in a bracket, only quotation, scientific processes, for instance. Whatever term you were given or trying to understand at the moment. As if you are narrating a nature documentary and make it vivid and engaging. Now, using this kind of prompt, the AI won't just explain the process without any context. Now, the context here is nature documentary. Nature documentary is basically, if you've ever watched Nat Geo Wild, the channel, basically they'll be kind of telling a story of how animals live their day. So basically, the AI will actually adapt to that kind of pattern of explaining things to make that scientific process you're trying to understand easily understandable. Now, of course, it will make it vivid and engaging at the same time. Now, you can also use a prompt like compare and contrast. In bracket or quotation, write the first concept. On the second bracket, write the second concept. That is the two concepts you're trying to understand. And then tell it in a table format, highlighting key differences. Now, basically, the AI will actually compare the first concept with the second concept, and you actually ask for a format. So it will actually, remember, there's one of the previous modules we covered was specifying the kind of output you want the AI to give you, the reply you actually desire. Now here we specifically specified we wanted the comparison, or should I say, the comparison in a table format. So the AI will actually do that, and it will highlight the key differences at the same time. Now you can also use another prompt that starts with I'm designing and experimenting to test. In bracket, input your hypothesis. Now your hypothesis could be a rough idea of a project you have in mind, a system you want to build, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be perfect. The point is you have a picture of something, even though it's not perfect, even though it's not complete, you are putting it there. What variables should I control? What could go wrong? Now the AI here will actually evaluate that hypothesis we have given. If it's right and aligns with realistic concepts, it will actually go over that and explain how you can improve it. If it's wrong, it could actually specify what happened and what could go wrong, and it could specify if it actually can be controlled. Now you can also use something like draw a flow chart in text showing the steps of biological process. That's the one we use in this example. Remember, in this bracket you can add photosynthesis, whatever it is. Could be a life cycle of a bird, life cycle of a mosquito, whatever it is. It will use a flowchart diagram showing the steps of the of the concept you add in the bracket. Now here's a practical application. Preparing for a biology test on cellular respiration. Now use a prompt that starts with something like I'm studying cellular respiration. Create a study guide that 1. Explains the process in simple terms. 2. Lists the key molecules involved. 3. Provides a metaphor comparing it to factory assembly line. That's very interesting. Now remember, or should I say, read this very carefully. It says 1. Explains the process in simple terms. 2. Lists the key molecules involved. 3. Provides a metaphor comparing it to factory assembly line. 4. Generate 5 quiz questions that test understanding, not memorization. Now this prompt specifically, even if you are a beginner, will actually make you understand what cellular respiration is, regardless of your level. You don't have to be an expert, maybe a biology student, but you'll definitely understand what this term cellular respiration is. The point here is you can plug in whatever concept you're trying to understand instead of that cellular respiration and using this exact format. And the AI will actually break it down into using these 5 different steps and help you understand it. Now this one prompt completely, or should I say, solves a lot of problems. One prompt, complete study session. For computer science students or programmers, if you code or want to learn, AI is a debugging partner and syntax helper, but with caveats. Now power prompts for coding use for coders, that's programmers. You can use something like explain what this code does line by line. Now let's take, for instance, you were given a page of code, or maybe 100 lines or 200 lines of code, and you are told to improve, maybe explain or something. You can easily copy that code, paste it here, and the AI will actually explain what each of the lines does in the code. So it will practically, but before you finish reading the entire reply of the AI, you understand what the entire 200 lines or maybe 100 lines of code is and what it does. Or you can use something like, I'm getting this error. That's, for instance, if you're already building something and then of course you're getting errors. Of course, all developers meet errors sometimes. You copy the error you got. That's if you are very good at debugging. You get the error, paste it there. Here's my code. Bring your code. That's the original code that's actually supposed to run and show something, but it's not actually showing that concept you want. So you can paste that original code there and then tell it what's wrong and how do I fix it. Personally, I've used this exact format, the second format here, and it has helped me a lot actually in trying to catch things I don't even know what happened. Now you can use another example like show me 3 different ways to accomplish, explain the task. It could be maybe you're trying to build an authentication system, you're trying to build a landing page, a navigation bar, or maybe a behavior or a button. You take your code and, that's if you don't have a code, for instance. The statement went in and then language. In this language, you're supposed to put in the programming language. That is, if you understand the programming language you want or maybe trying to use. Explaining pros and cons of each. Now, AI will actually help you with a way to actually solve that exact problem and using that specific programming language. Now, another example you can use or another prompt is, I understand loops with no recursion. Explain recursion using a simple visual analogy. Now, this is an example of prompt you can use to understand concepts in programming. You don't have to be the best developer out there, but having a good understanding of the kind of concept you're trying to understand and plugging into this prompt will actually help you a lot. Now, here's a critical note. Use AI to understand code, not to mindlessly copy it. Remember, you as a human are the creative part of whatever it is you're doing. AI is just a machine. If you put in garbage in, it will definitely give you a garbage out. So, if you ask AI to build something and generate the code and just copy it, paste it, and run it, while it will work, the point here is, at some point, when you run into a problem, and you definitely will, you not understanding what you're copying and pasting will actually bite you behind exactly that point, because you don't actually understand the code you're copying and running, and you've already built a ton of project progressing forward. So of course you'll be at a very huge loss here. Now, what the AI generated code does, you actually don't know. You haven't learned anything about that programming language or how that concept. You've just borrowed an answer which is not yours. Remember, you're basically copying an answer in exams. Now, here's an example I tried once to solve a problem. I said my JavaScript kept throwing a syntax error. I pasted the error. The AI explained and provided a copy of the fix. Now, you can notice how the AI explains the problem I'm solving. I don't even actually understand what the problem was, but it was able to actually understand the kind of problem I was having, provide a correct version of it, and then the key points I should understand, and a final note below. Now, for humanities, this is a research and analysis assistant. For history is about understanding context, actually, the cause and effects and narrative of how it went down. Now, AI helps you organize timelines, connect events, and analyze sources. Power prompts for history. You can use something like create a timeline of historical period. That historical period, the historical period is a variable, of course. You can plug in. You want to know maybe you'd like to know what happened during the First World War. You'd like to know what happened during the collapse of the Soviet Union, or maybe the infamous plague of the 19th or early 19th century. Now, of course, after the historical period you like to understand, with 10 key events, each with a one-sentence explanation of its significance. Now, this prompt creates a kind of simplified version of the historical period, what happened. Of course, with the 10 key events, of course, it will actually highlight those 10 key events within that historical timeline, each with one sentence explanation of its significance. Of course, this historical period also, you can put in a date of, a start and end of a year. You could say, for instance, in the historical period variable, you can say from maybe 2001 to 2022. Now, within those 22 years, or should I say 21 years, the AI will actually generate a timeline of events for that specific timeline and explain everything to you. You can also use something like compare the causes of event A and event B. Event A and event B are variables here, of course. Event A, for instance, let's say, for instance, a good example is First and Second World War. You can say compare the causes of First World War and Second World War. What patterns emerge? Now, the AI will actually compare those events and tell you any pattern that actually emerges between the two. And it will actually, which if a human is to do that, obviously, it's very hard to do that. You need to find a lot of experts. But you can see here with a single line, the AI can actually do a work of a lot of experts at the same time. Another example is I'm arguing that in the bracket, maybe, that's a variable. Thesis, you can put your argument, whatever the argument is. What are the strongest counter-arguments I should address? Now, this will actually help you strategize the kind of argument you're actually making. Because you cannot argue something you haven't actually gotten counter-arguments against. So you need to understand what are the opposite sides of the argument, and this exact prompt helps you do that. Another example is explain, then in bracket, historical event. Of course, just like the first prompt, from 3 different perspectives. Now, this is very interesting. Now, imagine you're trying to understand the First World War, or should I say the Second World War, using 3 different perspectives. The perspective of the Allied nations, the Japanese, of course, who are affected, and then the Germans too. Now, this exact prompt will actually give you a good example of what happened during World War II, and these perspectives of 3 different groups of people, which obviously were involved in the war, but are all fighting for different things. Will tell you what happened and how it's connected. Now, here's a practical application. Writing an essay on the causes of World War I, of course. Now, the first prompt you can use here, of course, is I'm writing an essay arguing that nationalism was the primary cause of World War I. Full stop. Help me. 1, outline my arguments in 5 main points. 2, suggest 2 strong counter-arguments I should address. 3, recommend 3 types of historical evidence I should cite. Now, this prompt helps you understand not just World War I, but the arguments which you actually specified in 5 main points. 2 strong counter-arguments to that specific argument, of course, you should address. And then it will recommend 3 types of historical evidence you should cite, which are genuinely grounded. Now, of course, for this, as a bonus, you can use Perplexity AI, which is one of the best AI for research out there. You can try this also. Literature and language arts. Now, literature analysis requires close reading and interpretation. AI can generate insights, but interpretation is what matters. Now, here are power prompts for literature, or people in literature, of course. You can say, analyze the symbolism in bracket, paste the passage. It could be a page of Shakespeare's novel or whatever passage you're trying to understand. From text. Okay, sorry, yeah. Let's say, for instance, you're trying to understand a page of Shakespeare's or maybe Soyinka's novel, Things Fall Apart. You can take a paragraph inside that page, paste it as a passage there, and then from text, then use the entire page as a text. What might the author be suggesting? Now, a lot of times, especially for in literature, you may find in a single page an author is referring to almost 5 different things. Now, in the context of a single paragraph, what the author might be saying wouldn't even make sense sometimes. It could even seem entirely opposite of the entire story he's trying to tell. But then, if you're trying to consider the context of the entire page, maybe even a chapter, completely, even a chapter before, you'll have a good understanding of where the story is coming from and why that paragraph specifically exists. Hence the story of hence the point of stories, or should I say context matters sometimes in stories. Or should I say, it does actually a lot, of course. Now, another example you can use is compare the character arcs of character A and character B. Let's say you're reading a book about Titanic, for instance. You can say, compare the character arcs of Jack and character act of, character A being Jack and character B being Ross. How do these have different thematic purposes? Of course, someone who is a literature, of course, if it's an expert, can give you an answer to this, but AI can help you do this at a very fast level without you having to be a literature expert. It will actually highlight everything you need. A third example is I'm writing an essay on write the theme. What is the essay trying to be about? In text, paste the text there. So just 5 specific quotes I should analyze with brief notes on their significance. Of course, the AI will also help. You can also use an example like, you can also use another example like rewrite in bracket complex passage. For instance, you're trying to understand 2 pages of Shakespeare, which you have no idea what he's trying to say or maybe talking about. So you can paste the passage there and then add the text in more, after in the bracket, after you paste the text or page, then say something, add something like in modern simple English to help me understand what it's actually saying. Now this will actually break down the entire complexity of those 2 pages to make it much more easier to absorb and understand. A lot of times you may find authors using some advanced vocabulary words which are relatively harder to find even at dictionaries sometimes. Even if you're using the internet, you will find it hard to understand those words. This program will actually help you escape using the dictionary for that purpose. For language learning, you can use something like I'm learning, use the in bracket, put the language, it could be Chinese, it could be Hindu or whatever the language is. Create a dialogue between 2 friends planning a weekend trip with English translations. Now, of course, the AI will create the dialogue of 2 friends trying to plan a weekend trip, but then it will also translate. Now, you can compare what English word compares to the alternative language word at the same time, using that samples generated. Another example you can use is explain the grammatical rule for concept, in bracket concept, put the concept there, with 5 example sentences showing correct showing correct and incorrect usage. You can also use another example like translate this, comma, then explain any idioms or cultural context I should know. Paste the text there. Now, here's an example of a sample I made, or should I say, a test I did. I asked AI to perform an analysis of this idea and provide a viability analysis. It can, if it can also be profitable, and this is what it gave me. Now here's a viability analysis of the idea here being is a internet pinging device basically. Basically, it's for internet pinging device designed to provide real-time insights on network performances through an insider SIM card. Now, of course, the AI said it's innovative and holds potential, and then detailed analysis covering various aspects: the market demands and needs, technical feasibility, cost and pricing model. Of course, the AI covered all of those things. Now, of course, I had to provide the rough idea to do this, which means AI can't give you a viability analysis of what you don't understand. Social sciences, when it comes to psychology, sociology, and economics. Now, these fields combine data analysis with human behavior understanding. Power points of social sciences. You can use something like explain, then in a bracket or quotation, psychological theory, or maybe whatever concept you're trying to understand, using a scenario from everyday life that illustrates it clearly. Now, the AI will actually explain this using that scenario is specified, of course, and it will illustrate it very clearly. You can use another example like I'm analyzing survey data on, put the topic there, here are the results, then put the data you actually have. What patterns or insights or insights stand out? Now, you may find yourself with a case where you have a topic, you have to analyze a lot of data to actually get exactly what's related to that topic. But you don't necessarily have the time or the patience to do that yourself. Now, this is one of those places you can use AI to do that. It can skim through the data, remove anything irrelevant, and So another example is I'm analyzing survey data on topic, in the bracket, put the topic there. Here are the results I have. You paste in the results. What patterns or insights stand out? Now, a good example, a good use case for this is, say for instance, you have a topic and you have to sift through a lot of data to find relevant files, or should I say relevant information related to that topic. And you may not necessarily have the time to actually do that yourself. Well, you can use this prompt, put in the topic, copy all the entire data, which is unstructured, paste it in. The AI will actually go through it entirely. Anything irrelevant will actually be deleted, and only relevant files will be left. Another example is compare economic system A and economic system B. Now this, you can use this example with, say for instance, socialist economic system and capitalist economic system. Now, across three factors, or should I say these factors for instance, efficiency, equity, innovation, and stability. Now they will actually help break this down across these factors and make it easy for you to understand. What are the main criticisms of theory, what are the main criticisms of, in bracket, theory or model? Who are the key critics and what do they argue? Of course, you can post in the theory or model you're trying to understand, and AI will actually help you with that. Creative fields, your inspiration and technical guide. Visual arts and design. Whether you're drawing, designing, or creative digital art, AI helps you with concepts, composition, and technical skills. Power prompts for art. Suggest 10 creative prompts for type of art project. Make them specific and unusual. Now, the AI will help suggest 10 creative prompts for whatever type of art or project you paste in there. It could be you're trying to design calligraphy images, or maybe calligraphy writings. Maybe it could be advertisement banners, logos, or whatever project you're trying to build. It could be even branding or whatever it is. Another example you can use is explain the role of thirds in composition using examples from famous paintings. Now, I don't actually understand what this means, but the AI will actually explain that. I want to create a logo for, in the bracket, put the description there. So just 5 different conceptual directions I could explore. You can use this also. It will help you suggest the 5 different conceptual directions you could explore and continue on. Critique this design concept. Describe the design concept there. What works? What could be improved? The AI will actually help you do that too. For digital artists, you can generate reference images, color palettes, or maybe composition ideas with AI models like DALL-E. Then use them as inspiration. Not final product, of course, because the actual final product is your own work. For music artists, music theory composition. So in music theory, composition help, lyric writing, AI has application across multiple musical spectrum. Power prompts for music. You can use something like explain music theory concept in simple terms with a practical example I can play. Another example you can use, that's the music theory here, you can put whatever theory it is. I don't know examples of music theory I could have added in there. Another example you can use is I'm writing a song about, write the theme. It could be love, it could be sadness, it could be death, whatever the theme is. Then tell it to suggest 5 different approaches for the chorus, varying in mood from melancholy to upbeat. Of course, the AI can help you do that too. Another example you can use is analyze the chord progression in song. Put the song there. It could be whatever song sample you have that you want to understand how it actually happened, or should I say how it was actually done, the song was actually made. Why does it create that emotional effects? Yeah, I will actually point exactly that. Generate lyrics for a verse on topic. Put the topic there, it could be whatever the topic it is, of course, or maybe a theme, in the style of genre, whatever genre it is, with internal rhyme scheme. Writing and storytelling. We cover some of this in Model 4 actually, but here's an academic angle. Power prompts for creative writing. I'm stuck on my story. Here's the situation. Explain the situation in a bracket. Suggest 3 widely different ways this scene could unfold. You can use something like critique my opening paragraph. Paste the paragraph if you are writing a book, for instance. Is it engaging? What could make it stronger? The AI could actually help you do that. You can use something like generate 5-character description prompts that subvert typical. Put the genre in the bracket, the stereotypes. You can use also something like help me brainstorm, for instance. I want to write about, put the team in bracket, but avoid cliches. What are some fresh angles I could explore? The AI will help you with that also. Your AI subject toolkit. Now let's build a personalized AI starter kit for your main subjects. Choose 2 to 3 subjects at least, which you are currently studying or most interested in. For each subject, create 3 go-to prompts you'll use repeatedly to adapt from examples like we did earlier. 1 study workflow, how you use AI to for homework, projects, or test preparations. 3, 1 success metric, how you'll measure if AI is actually helping. Another example of this is mathematics. A good example of mathematics toolkit here is go to prompts. Check my work on, open a bracket, put the problem there. Explain concepts, put the concepts there with a visual analogy, or maybe something like generate 5 practice problems on topic. Put the topic in there. AI will actually help you with that also. For study workflow, do homework without AI first. Then use AI to verify and explain any mistakes, and then use what you learned to actually do the original homework itself. Do not directly copy your assignment from AI. Success metric. Spending less time stuck with higher quiz scores. Write this down or save it digitally. This becomes your reference guide whenever you're studying. Common subject-specific mistakes people make. The first mistake is using AI identically across all subjects. Now, you need to fix, or should I say, the fix is adapt your prompting style to the subject. So the subject needs. Be specific about what type of help you need. Another mistake is letting AI do the thinking in STEM. STEM courses, you have to do the thinking yourself. Now the fix here is show your work first. Don't just ask it to do the work itself. Then ask AI to verify. In the process of actually verifying to make sure that that answer is correct, you will learn from finding errors inside the work you actually pasted that you did, not from the perfect answer the AI will actually give you. That mistake is trusting AI's analysis in humanities without verification. Now here the fix is AI's literary or historical interpretations are one perspective. Remember this. Check with your textbooks, teachers, or other sources. I'm not necessarily saying the AI here is wrong, but the point here is there are some stories where you don't actually depend on a single perspective to actually understand the story. In fact, all historical events rely on multiple perspectives. If you're listening to a single perspective, you only have half of the truth, because the reality is history is told by the victors. So whatever historical event you're reading is very likely written by the victor of the story. A fourth mistake is over-relying on AI for creative fields. Now here's where using AI actually becomes, I wouldn't say bad, but almost. Use AI for inspiration and technical help, but the creative decision should be yours. AI can suggest, but you must choose. Now the key takeaway here is AI isn't a universal tool, it's adaptable. Different subjects require different prompting approaches. STEM uses AI for step-by-step reasoning and concept explanation. Humanities use it for research and analytical frameworks. Creative fields use it for inspiration and technical guidance. Build your personal toolkit of subject-specific prompts and workflows, and always verify AI's work against authoritative sources in your field. When adapted correctly, AI transforms from occasionally helpful to indispensable study partner. Now, what's next for after this? You just learn to integrate AI into your subjects. The second workshop, 6B, which is optional, of course, but for advanced learners, you should take that. But the primary one is this. Takes it further, of course, by building automated workflows that connect multiple AI tools into a seamless system. Now, if you're ready to become a power user, continue with workshop 6B. If you want to focus on ethics and responsible use first, skip workshop 7, or should I say workshop 6B, and go to 7. 6B is optional, of course. 6A is the priority. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one. That's all.